Hi, Paul from Paul's Passing Thoughts here. Just wanted to do a quick video on this upcoming conference that they have yearly, the Christian Counseling and Education Foundation. They are the New Calvinist group that came out of Sonship Theology and have all but taken over um, the vast majority of formal biblical counseling in the churches with the new Calvinist doctrine of progressive justification. Okay. And we see here the elder statesman of CCEF and the one who founded their curriculum via the dynamics of biblical change. He was a disciple of Dr. John Miller, also known as Jack Miller, who was the father of sonship theology, which is based on progressive justification. David Powlison was a disciple of him, and that counseling is based on that construct. And like I said, it's pretty much taken over all of the biblical counseling that is out there, and at least strongly influenced it. Here we have, speaking at the conference, is the queen of antinomianism, Elise Fitzpatrick, who is also a close associate of Tullian Tchividjian and a part of his yearly liberation, I think it is, conferences, which is really in-your-face antinomianism. And then we have Heath Lambert, a David Powlison puppet slash lackey, who is the new president of what used to be NANC, okay, the National Association of Nouthetic Counselors. Now, we're going to look at the video here of the conference, a little conference trailer, and I'm going to comment on it accordingly.
This conference is about things that...
Notice the drab, funeral-like music, and of course the personification of a mortician himself, David Powlison. Just a drab, just a drab character. Anyway, we continue.
They touch every single life. There's no person for whom loss is not a huge, final kind of reality.
Notice he speaks in regard to everyone's outlook on death, that it's just like a final reality. There you have the fact that the conference is going to be in San Diego, California. Powlison is based out of Pennsylvania. And like the first century Gnostics, Gnosticism is a doctrine and religion of the elitist crowd and people with money. If you look at what used to be NANC Counseling, their website, just go to Google NANC, N-A-N-C, counseling or biblical counseling. And when you go to they have a link there where you can be referred to NANC certified counselors. This ministry did an evaluation of all of those zip codes, and to where we put in, one by one, basically every zip code in the nation, and according to our research, we could not find one NANC counselor or biblical counseling counselor that's involved in this network who is in a zip code with an average where the average income is $50,000 less, or less than an average of $50,000 annual income in that particular zip code. Now, our research wasn't completely comprehensive and exhaustive, but yet I challenge anybody out there to find one of these counselors in a zip code where the income is poverty level or even middle class down. Now, of course, I'm sure there's some of these certified counselors in foreign countries where that wouldn't be the case. Their own standard of living within that geography notwithstanding.
It seems like the definition of human beings are we're known by what we love. And so as a result, that makes loss a much more difficult issue, because life is just losing those things we love one after another after another.
All right, this is Dr. Ed Welsh, and his definition of life is just, losing everything we love perpetually. And of course that's true to a point, but it's the usual dark way that Gnostics see life and reality, as opposed to his definition of the great unwashed masses, that they have a rose-colored view of life that defines it strictly in selfish terms. Let's continue.
This conference is one that I think will reflect the purposes of our God, where you look at hard things straight in the eye, and then you find as you look through them,
suffering is God's paramount purpose of life.
That there actually is one thing that is the best thing of all, that lasts forever.
The best thing is only seen in suffering.
The topic is a problem, but where it goes is a solution beyond all imagining.
Suffering is the solution, as we will see, like the Gnosticism that Luther based Protestantism on, is that of suffering being the epistemology that defines all reality.
I am thinking that this will be a tremendous opportunity to consider how to not give loss the last word.
Okay, well, what we're going to look at here is, and this is good old-fashioned Protestantism, and as I've taught before, the Yes, Luther's 95 thesis kind of launched the Reformation, but Luther's Heidelberg Disputation is really the foundation of Protestantism. He uh, presented this disputation to the Augustinian order just about 6 months after his 95 thesis. The Heidelberg Disputation has 28 theses, okay? We'll look at 4, okay? And what he says in thesis 4 is, let me see here. He says, let's start over here. The Lord kills and brings life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. This is understood to mean that the Lord humbles and frightens us by means of the law in the sight of our sins, so that we seem in the eyes of men as in our own as nothing, foolish and wicked, for we are in truth that insofar as we acknowledge and confess this, there is no room for beauty in us. Okay? But our life is hidden in God, i.e., in the bare confidence of His mercy, finding in ourselves nothing but sin, foolishness, death, and hell, according to that verse of the apostle. Okay, and then he goes on to twist 2 Corinthians 6, 9, and 10. As sorrowful yet always rejoicing, as dying, and behold we live. Let me see here. And that it is which, excuse me, Isaiah 28:21 calls the alien work of God that He may do His work. That is, He humbles us thoroughly, making us despair so that He may exalt us in His mercy, giving us hope. And in fact, this is what Protestantism is. It's a perpetual death and rebirth, the rebirth being called vivification. So basically what we're doing through what they call mortification, using the Bible to drive us to despair, and then being raised again to life. This is where Protestants get this. It's the doctrine of mortification and vivification. Okay, so basically, this conference is going to be about how loss is just another opportunity to experience more vivification and future glory. Okay, then if you go down to thesis 20, the Gnostic nature of all of this can be seen when the thesis 20 is, he deserves to be called a theologian, however, who comprehends the visible and manifest things of God seen through suffering and the cross. Okay? So all of the visible things are to be manifest through suffering. Okay? And that's going to be the major crux of this conference that people are going to spend megabucks to go hear about. Mostly pastors who are then going to go back and, share this and spread it amongst hundreds of local churches throughout the country. Luther goes on in Thesis 20, the manifest and visible things of God are placed in opposition to the visible, namely His human nature, weakness, foolishness. Okay? And this is all called the weakness and folly of God, because men misused the knowledge of God through works. In other places in the Heidelberg Disputation, Luther sees everything that is material as a works righteousness. Okay, God wished again to be recognized in suffering. Okay, so the only reason we can recognize how, so basically, Luther is saying that Christ came and died on the cross as an epistemology. Okay, and to condemn wisdom concerning invisible things by means of wisdom concerning visible things, so that those who did not honor God as manifested in his work should honor him as he is hidden in suffering. Okay? So basically, all of the knowledge of God is hidden in suffering. Okay? And you see that exact strain of belief in the video that we just watched. Now, I want to point out that as Christians, our main focus is not to be suffering. All right, our main focus is primarily James 1, where we see trials of fighting against sin daily and hourly, or just we should rejoice in that because it's merely an opportunity to grow spiritually. But the thing that I see more and more in the scriptures is that Christians need to be focused on maturing and loving and sanctifying ourselves and separating ourselves from the old ways with the help of the Holy Spirit. These conferences and conferences like it, if we're not careful, are become studies in how to do what Luther said to do, but not what God said to do. Verse 8 of Philippians chapter 4, Paul says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is any anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and listen, the God of peace will be with you." Okay? Luther said, focus on death, because God is hidden in suffering. Focus on suffering, dwell on suffering, by all means, because the knowledge of God is hidden in suffering. Paul says just the opposite in Philippians 4a, that we're rather to dwell on what is true. And that's key, because life is not all about suffering. Ed Welch's definition of life is not true. Okay? Suffering and constant death is not the reality. Did a little arts and crafts project here, so to speak. This is a magazine cover that I made. Of course, it's satire, but it could happen to you magazine, a journal of Reformed Biblical Counseling. In this issue, the dangers of walking, talking, breathing, eating, and thinking. Thinking being the worst one, where danger is most prevalent, because, of course, Luther himself said that reason is an ugly whore who should have dung rubbed in her face to make her ugly. So basically, this is what we have in the long and short of the biblical counseling that we have in our day. Buyer beware. Hope this video has been helpful to you. Have a wonderful God-honoring day, and remember, only truth sanctifies. John 17:17.